rural Colorado and connect teachers with one another. And using face-to-face coaching, and then also online facilitation of keeping conversations going so they weren't working in isolation. And so I have a strong background in educational technology. That's what I pursued my master's degree in. And that kind of bridged the gap when I was sitting down and talking to Rosie the day I met him, and how our worlds kind of connected, and my world connected with True Kids One. And so it was kind of this perfect match. They were doing phenomenal things for students and getting students out into the field and providing these opportunities for career paths, which is a huge passion of mine. And then the blend of the media and civic engagement, and my background in that project-based civic engaged learning with expeditionary learning was kind of a magical fit. It was the day we met, it was a connection. So it was good. So that's kind of how I ended up with working with True Kids One, and that started last July. So yeah,
you've been with True Kids for almost a year now then? Yeah, almost a year.
I'm coming up on a year, but not quite.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the intro. So for the Digital Day Camp, when did the initial planning and work on the actual camp itself begin?
Okay, so this brainstorm came about late July, early May. And it was a conversation between Rosie and I, and we knew that given our current educational landscape and our global situation with our, facing the COVID pandemic, that students needed something, and we had the capacity to give them something intriguing and innovative to do for at least a month in the summer. And so we started to just kind of talk about what that could look like, and it spiraled very, very quickly, because by the end of May we had a full-blown 8-group 160 student with about 30 counselors, junior counselors, being facilitated. So it happened with a lot of elbow grease and hard work from my peers. I didn't go it alone, that's for sure. So we have a really good cohort.
In the initial stages, what were there any drawbacks with going online from having those in-person camps in the past? And what were some of the advantages that you found with that came with going online?
Well, I mean, like I said, my background is in blended learning. And so for me, we had already been building this learning management system, and we hadn't been using it to its full capacity. So as soon as we decided to go online, it wasn't really a compare and a contrast between the two. It was, this is the format we're using, let's make it really effective. And so that is just the way we approached it. It's been very seamless. We haven't had any of our mentors have complications with going into that format, although some of them, clearly would prefer face-to-face.
You said that you thought about it not as moving from in-person to online instead of having two separate things, which I thought was really interesting. So with the camp as a whole, what would the camp going perfectly look like to you, and what was your end goal? What did you have in mind when coming into this?
One of the components of True Kids One that we always are trying to adhere to and really give to the experience to our students, and that they also give to us as adults coordinating it, is that civic engagement. And so, the vision and the dream was that we would have this blend between the groups, having these conversations around what's happening in the world around them and making media to express that. And so, as we continue on, we've gotten into week 1, people are getting their feet wet. They're really engaged in what's happening in our world, and our world changed in the first week of this camp. And And so now it's getting those cross conversations going between the groups and really supporting one another. And we're going to start to see that as our web design group is posting our social media posts, and the conversations continue. So that's kind of the big idea. And then the other was, our younger student group doing this really innovative and fun science online learning, which is a unique experience for all of us.
And those kids are 8 to 9 in the science group?
They're 8 to 9.
8 to 9.
They built marshmallow rocket launchers the other day. They're creating memes. They're working towards animation. They've done flipbook animation. So they're doing a lot of things that are giving them foundation to grow into these other groups at some point.
So yeah, with regards to the teams in the different groups, I believe there are 9 or 10, if I'm correct. And these teams all span different mediums and curriculums.
Right.
What was the decision-making process for the amount of teams and the types of teams? And were there any teams that you wish could have been included in the camp that didn't make it into the final plans?
Okay. So the reason we chose the media genres and teams that we did is because those are identified as kind of the main genres of media. I don't know that there are too many that I don't think there are any that we missed at this point. And those are some that we are also focusing on as an organization, that throughout our work with students and teachers, that we're hoping to create this system of badging so that students can get credentials and walk away with that and have this skill set to bring into their next level of education or into career paths. And so we try to match those opportunities across the board as we're providing learning experiences. So whether it's camp or TK1 normal track or our pro track, those all correlate and coincide with one another. The newest one that we brought in was the STEM, and that is a collaborative with the Lano Foundation as they try to reimagine what learning science online can look like.
Yeah, so this was, I believe this was one of the first fully online summer camps or courses that span such a wide variety of topics and ages. In the initial setup, what was the most difficult obstacle to overcome for you and the admin
team? Probably just logistics. Just making sure that we had all the components in place to have people signing up, gathering that information, assigning students to teams, making sure there was a balance of ages. When we had students sign up, we were really heavy on the younger ages. We originally were going to do the STEM camp for the, I think, 11-year-old to 9-year-old group. And then it parceled out naturally to be actually 2 groups of 8 and 9-year-olds, but then we blended it back into one because of a little bit of attrition. But those components, and then just building our team and making sure that we had this constant stream of communication going. But I don't, it all worked out, like I said, because we have a really dedicated group of leads, and it's been a success because of everyone's input.
And I believe you said there are almost 30 mentors and over how many participants?
So that's including the junior counselors. And then we had 160 students. I think with attrition, we are down to about 134, maybe something like that. So, but yeah, it's going on.
Yeah. So,
and then our biggest hiccup was Zoom the first day.
Yeah. Zoom has been an adjustment for sure, but I think it went pretty well for the most part. So in your opinion, what do you think TK1 can take from this experience? And has anything that you or the organization as a whole has learned during the planning and implementation of the camp, will that ever be used again for a similar experience, like a camp, a workshop in the future?
Absolutely. Everything we're doing is informing our progress as we move forward. And really, I mean, what we're doing is we're kind of laying foundational work for structure and what it can look like in an online format or face to face, and even the flow of the week, the workshop models, all of those components are things that we'll draw from and ask feedback from our mentors and junior counselors. We'll ask them feedback at the end and say, you know, what worked really well for you, what didn't, because we're always learning and always trying to grow and expand what we're doing, but at the same time, make it more efficient, which is one of my main roles with True Kids One. So.
I don't have too many other questions, and I don't want to keep you for too long. But yeah, so with the camp as a whole, do you think that that there are any other ideas or not? Yeah, any other ideas that didn't make the final cut or the final plans that you would implement if you could do it over again?
I don't know that I'm ready to answer that question. I need to get through the camp and then decide, you know, if I could do this a little differently, I probably would have, but we're kind of still in the thick of it. And so, you know, just focusing on what's coming out of it. And, you know, like I talked to you earlier, it's so fun to go through and take the time to read everyone's discussion boards. And, you know, we're just into week 2. So to kind of see what content comes out of it and thematics and structure and that sort of thing. I think it's been a good flow so far.
Yeah, I agree. And with Schoology, was that a more difficult part of the camp to set up, or was that seamless for like the discussion boards and for other parts?
Right. To me, I think it's been pretty seamless. That's something that when I was doing that professional development redesign project I was telling you about in the past, that's a platform that I was very familiar with and used and inspired True Kids One to begin using. And so for me, it was quite seamless. You know, it's not without a little bit of legwork to get, you know, logistics put together, but it's very user friendly.
Yeah, well, I'd have to agree for that too. As a junior mentor, it's been pretty easy to transition into that.
Great.
Well, we'll have to come back and get your answer on the question for what would you do differently and once the camp has finished.
I'd love to do that.
But that's all the questions I have for today and for now. And I don't want to keep you for any longer than you have to be here.
That's okay.
But thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.